Hello world, Patricia O'Connor, Frida Reba Darcy here. The Bonsai balcony. It is a slightly overcast, very warm, kind of nice day out. Let's see, we've got ourselves tree treats, dog treats. There you go, babe. There you go, babe. Okay, we've been doing. I swept. We've been doing just a balcony tour. I straightened up and cleaned up and did a few things here today, and then decided that because of that, I would take a minute and show where we are on our balcony with our trees and our birds. So yeah, a couple of times a year, I get tired of the way things are arranged. Sometimes the reason for that is something is in the way, in a way that I think that it's going to cause it damage. Sometimes the reason for that is something might be in the wind in a way that I think will cause them damage. Or sometimes I think something is getting too much exposure to western light or not enough exposure to actual sunlight. So for all of those things, I try to balance out who's happy, who's unhappy. I can move a tree someplace and it will absolutely thrive there, and then the situation will change as the seasons change, and maybe it looks like it's less happy, or maybe something else looks less happy. And I think if I move you from there where you're unhappy to over here, these guys probably won't mind that. So there's some of that, and then there's some also. Pat's a big old gal, long arms, long limbs, comes in all guns a-blazing with watering cans, and I just have to be careful of what's hanging out in my traffic area. So if I can make it easier for me to get through here, that will show up on my trees. I haven't said that. I've got a system here that that just kind of made itself. We were working on this a couple of days ago. I brought this in to do a short because I like doing shorts with cool trees when we've got it flowing it right. So at the same time, I was kind of concerned about, we've been going through a lot of rain here lately, but more wind. The rain has been off and on, and the rain that we've had have been bands of showers that look really strong on their way over. And by the time they get out here, they peter out to where we get a 15-minute shower that took 3 days to get here. And I was concerned over water and over that. Yeah, sometimes. And then sometimes, we get the proverbial floods. But it just seemed like a good time to move this guy from where it was so that I can get closer to it and see and pay closer attention to what it's doing. Having done that, I didn't like where I first moved it to here. Also, these guys needed more sun and more light. Those guys needed more sun and more light. These guys seem to be okay with the sun and the light and the wind that they're getting, so that tells me that it's probably, they're all happy. This guy's happy. I moved that out where it's getting more light, not for reasons that it necessarily needed more light, but I wanted the space. I wanted the space where it was at, and I thought that would be happier there. So that was kind of like, I did a musical chairs. And as much as I love this right now, if I will, as history, as my guide, change this all around again. But okay, now we'll go ahead and start with our little tour proper. Trident maple got buds all over it. We are still waiting to see it produce buds and get really rolling. What we're not so much waiting on is to see root development. There's seems to be quite a bit of root development in there, and I don't see any weeds in there to blame it on. I think what we think are good viable roots are probably good viable roots. So we're going to continue to let that roll. I would expect to see that pick up a little bit more when this picks up a little bit more. But this year, like last year, it was one of the last things to come out into leaf. Next is not something that seems to be in any way shy or bashful about coming up. This is our Chinese wisteria, or Chinese sinensis wisteria. This tree was one of my early acquisitions. I got it off of eBay as a pre-bonsai, and this is what it does every year. It puts out prolific amount of shoots, and we can definitely wire and put motion in this stuff that we want to keep. So if I want to keep any of this would be a good time, or here in the next couple of, the next month, would be a good time to put some motion into some of that, and let it become parts of our tree. Otherwise, we have to cut this back quite a bit every year because it wants to be a vine more than a tree. Wisterias are like that. I've seen wisterias kill the tree that they were host to, and then became these upright, twisted bonsai-looking trees because they wrapped around something that then died. So you ended up with some really twisted-looking. I can show some old homesteads on old country roads out in the South that had trees with such features like that, and it was, kind of picturesque too. But that's the way you have to do wisterias. You have to keep them chopped short, or they will always find something to climb or cling to and move right on down the neighborhood. But this one's doing well. It was an early acquisition, and when it comes to wisterias, people will tell you that you have to watch the fertilizers and stuff. I don't over fertilize my trees. I just give everybody minimum dosages of fertilizer more every day than a lot of fertilizer a couple of times a year, or a couple of times a month, or once a month, or whatever. I just do micro doses daily, and I do that with a fertilizer that has low single-digit numbers in its combination, which is BioGold, which is 555. So that's not too much nitrogen to keep these guys from blooming. Last year, this guy bloomed for the first time. Also, it's not hard to grow a wisteria from seed. However, if you grow a wisteria from seed, you may be waiting tens of years before it blooms. If you clone a wisteria, and they're easy to clone from a blooming tree or a blooming specimen, then it will be a blooming tree, provided that you don't mess it around in the nutrients or something. Other than that, you will have a tree capable of blooming every year if you give it the basic wisteria treatment. Like I said, these guys go on low dose. This is my Japanese wisteria, and it is a Japanese florbundii wisteria. It's white, and this one is blue. So white wisteria. This is also my stick in a pot, and it's kind of got. I took about a 40-year layoff in between playing with bonsai as a kid, and then getting reacquainted with bonsai as an adult during COVID. So this kind of has first tree status. That's why I will keep stick and pot even after I've long since parted with greater trees. I'll probably always try to maintain stick and pot. Anyway, that's my Japanese and my Chinese wisteria. This is a tree that needs probably little introduction. If you've seen our show before, I show it an awful lot. It is our 100-plus-year-old Yamadori ponderosa pine. This was collected in 2021, 2022, I forget which. Deadwood, South Dakota. It was collected by a professional collector. I purchased this tree. I did a little bit of styling to it before stopping all of my styling dead in its tracks so that we could remove the wire, so that we could do some grafting to this tree. We were successful, not overly so, but we were successful. I'm going to try to hone in on that graft there. You can see that graft that I'm keeping in the center as I reach way out with my camera. That little graft is going to town. It's got its own candle already, and it's getting ready to do stuff. It's getting ready to try to take its rightful place. As long as that candle thrives and flourishes, it will eventually, the plan is, it will eventually become the top of the tree, and everything else will go. Boom. So hopefully that's how that goes. We just recently repotted this tree, and this is a good lesson. This is a heavy tree. I have tilted this tree. I have leaned this tree. I have leaned this tree. We've talked about watering dilemmas that we've had with this tree, but it wasn't because of the size of the tree. I haven't laid this thing on its side before. I picked it up and had it fairly high, long enough to shove blocks under one end while we talked about the best way to evacuate water, excuse me, on a tree that is not evacuating water properly. When I repotted this tree, lo and behold, the drainage holes were woefully inadequate. At some point, whenever I decided to tilt the tree to give it, better drainage, I drilled little holes down here in the bottom because I didn't want water pulling up on this end after I tilted the pot. Those holes right there are bigger than the 4 holes it had underneath there. The 4 holes it had underneath here were just so wire could go through. This thing had no drainage, none, zippo. It had the 2 holes that I cut in there, and then a couple like it, so that wire could go up from the bottom. And most of our drainage issues would have stemmed from that. Even at the point where when this would have gotten potted and you would have tried to and you would have wanted to do a heavy water afterwards to flush this thing out of all the silt and stuff, I don't see how that could have happened. I don't see how this thing ever could have been flushed of all the dust in the sediment whenever you repot one that's always there with the amount of drainage that I saw. So our repot was very necessary, and I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we got that underway. I still was, had I not known that, I would have been limping along going to a lot more trouble trying to achieve a balance of water and oxygen. But I would say in the long run, we mostly did that. I saw an example of both things. I saw a lot of roots, and I also saw a root ball that was not as big. It didn't encompass this. And I still saw a lot of roots, and I also saw some dead roots, some rotted roots on the ends and stuff. So where they could have been encompassing more soil, more space, they were living and dying there. That's what I saw. They weren't necessarily rotted. They could have dried out because the part above them was too wet, and I was waiting for that to dry out before I watered the bottom, so that, whatever that was, we weren't getting what we want to call a balance of water and oxygen, and it wasn't properly percolating through this tree. Now we've got all of that, and with spring coming on, the tree's waking up. We have been, unfortunately, having some rain and some wind right after our repotting. After a repotting, it's hands off for a while. We wouldn't be doing candles on this tree because, one, it's not a tree we do candles on. But after you repot a tree, you could do some wiring, but don't do candles on a repotted tree, and wait a little while before you fertilize. Wait a couple of weeks before you go back with your fertilization. That's just kind of a rule of thumb on repotting. So water heavily after you repot a tree so you can get all the silt and get everything evenly, one coat of water, and then knock that off and let it dry out. Let it dry out good before you go back in and water again. That's to switch on the cue for the tree to switch on new root development. If you kind of sporadically water to kind of like, well, this kind of part looks wet, this part looks dry, let it dry out and then water again, and that's how you restart your roots. I'll just say that way. Oak. We're looking at the back side of my California coastal oak. The last couple of years has been a rebuilding process. I've been really happy with the rebuilding process on this tree. It is very encouraging to see the way this is going. I did a little thing where I scraped back our soil, busted up all these lumps of moss, and then kind of broke them up and then dropped them back down. That's to better facilitate the tightness that I was seeing on the top of the soil. I went through there I went through there with one of my bamboo stakes and I started chewing all that up. Now it waters quite a bit faster, and it's just what we wanted it to do. I'm still waiting to see it fully bust out, along with its cork part counterpart that I'll get to in a minute. But this is a pretty happy tree. It's about 40 something years old. It's not 50 years old, because at 50 years old, I believe this particular species would give up the acorns or acorns, and I haven't seen it do. I haven't seen either one of my oaks produce any acorns yet. But I've had this tree about 3-4 years now, and we went from a show-shaped tree to a tree that looked like it was pruned with a chainsaw, because of the amount of things that happened to this tree over some hellacious Black Death dieback stuff that had us cutting off huge chunks of tree, and then going back the next day and cutting off more huge chunks of tree as they turned black and just kept on moving down. That's like, it just kept chopping. But what we got left, we built the tree out of, and since then I learned more about systemic treatments, and I learned more about never water the foliage on an oak, and I learned more about feeding. So all of the trees on my balcony would have benefited from something that I went through with this one and that one over there over one bad summer. So this is like this tree is a Yamadori, meaning it was collected off the side of a mountain. So too was this Shohin size ponderosa. This is a little ponderosa, 20 plus years. It's got bark all over it, so we know it's over 10. This little guy is doing really well after a repot that it got at the latter part of last year, just as we kind of, earlier in the spring. This was when we would have just, not spring yet, but when we were feeling spring here. So let's say a month ago, I repotted this tree, and it's showing us that it's happy by pushing out a lot of new growth. I also threw this tree in the freezer last year to take its temperatures down lower than what it would have normally gotten in the Bay Area. If you want to know more about that, you can ask me in the questions, and I'll go into more detail about that. But it was a little trick I used to try to overwinter this tree when it is not quite used to winters as warm as what we have here. At the same time I was doing that, this was too big to go in the top of the freezer. So I overwintered it in Northern California, where it had temperatures that were more conducive to a ponderosa. And then while we did that, that's when we had it grafted with our graft. So, okay, stop skipping around. These are also ponderosas. In my query to find out how easy it would be to keep ponderosas alive here, I ordered 10 from upstate. I think these guys came from either Oregon or Washington, I can't remember, but it was a great little nursery. Sadic Hill Farm Nursery, is that right? It was just like, oh golly, that's so cutesy. Anyway, if you'll see the name, you'll go, yeah, that's what she meant. And these guys were just 10 upright trees, and what you're seeing is not 10, but 6. I did kill 4. But I don't think it was because they were ponderosas and I live next to the beach, although that's the story that will kill ponderosas. I think I killed them by doing what we do, by being a new grower. I overwired one and caused it damage, and it died shortly thereafter. And then I lost a couple to heat issues. They didn't like our 90-degree days, especially when we weren't getting those 90 days degree temperatures in August like they would have thought, maybe, or July. But when we were getting that in October, when they were starting to become more winter hardy, I saw damage, and I can still see damage. You know, the red spots on the needles was the heat burn from our October, and that still shows up on this one. You see all that? When this showed up on these trees, I also lost 3. That's how I would say that. Otherwise, these guys have been good little trippers. I don't know that they're the same subspecies. as as this ponderosa. Yeah, that's something I don't know. This is the species that you would find in the South Dakotas. And these were grown from seed in Washington or Oregon, so I don't know. I don't know. Scopulorum. Yeah, Ponderosa scopulorum. Anyway, they're looking really good. They're also looking like they're a little ready for water. We're okay with that. I'm going to come through here and water in just a few minutes. This is a Japanese black pine. This was purchased for my birthday a couple of years ago, my birthday present to me. And I absolutely love this tree. And this was grown 20 years from seed, so it's probably 25-year-old tree now. And this was one of Jonas's trees, and that's why it's got exquisite root work and a beautiful little pot. That's the same little pot that it came in. I love my black pines, and this one, I'm gonna bring camera around so that we can better see that base. That's look at that. That's how you make a base, and that base was made by spreading the roots out when this was a younger tree. Okay, we'll just pan down and around and show a tray full of mame. Mame meaning bean. These are my smallest little pine trees, my smallest little bonsai trees, and they, all of these are Japanese black pines. And this guy looks like that actually is better. That actually looks better than it looked the other day. Sometimes when a tree falls out of balance of the water and oxygen, and you keep watering the other ones, it's hard to separate the action that you need to do. You know, it's like, whatever. But this is just now ready to be watered, so that'll be good. It'll be a good time to do that. That'll happen in the next few minutes. This is where I'll move the others. This just takes them. I can come through here now without worrying about knocking into anything, and everybody here is getting optimal light. This is in a great place for light, and this is very accessible here to me as well. So it's going to be easier to water. This is our corkbark oak. I just did a thing where I scraped off the top the other day, took off all the moss to facilitate percolation on this guy, and that worked nicely. I said that I was going to put that moss down. I am. I'm letting it dry out in that dish before I crumble it up and reapply it. So that's kind of what we're waiting on there. The tree is resting comfortably, and I am starting to see a little bit of that leaf curl again, although this treatment I did took care of. It better enabled me to get the water down. That's all I needed to do, and we've done that. And that little bit of leaf curl that I see right now is the product of me having not watered yet. That'll be gone just as soon as I water. This tree is happy. It's been a part of our collection for almost the whole time we've been doing this. We've been here on this balcony for over 5 years. These trees have been grown. Some people might argue that this is an indoor grow, or I'm experimenting with an indoor grow. I assure you I'm not. We are, we bump up our trees with light overhead so that they get overhead lighting when there is none. When the sun is out there, we still get good overhead lighting to make sure everything is even Steven. And those are serious grow lights. You could grow something that would grow in the tropics on those 740 watt apiece 2 panels. But we still get our ambient temperatures. We still get our sunrise, our sunset. We still get our wind. We still get our humidity. We still get our barometric pressure. All comes from, it's all going to be the same. It's right over there on the beach. You can see a treetop over that building. That tree's on the beach, and the tree next to it is on the beach. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of what's got us there. Our tri-dip maple, not our tri-dip maple, come on, Pat. Our Dawn Redwood has just got a little bit of work done on it. It's doing just exactly all the things that I hoped it would do. I would like to make a branch out of this, and then possibly cut back some of this lumber. I would like to see some more branch choices in here this summer, this spring, and then maybe cut back some of this lumber. Otherwise, I could be okay with calling this the new top and maybe giving this a chop and picking a new leader and letting it run up to clean up the edge. And then we could just, if we had, I could just chop that and let us develop. So that's kind of the thoughts. That's kind of the thoughts there. We had talked about, I'm going to show my literati. This is the Japanese black pine literati. We did a show on it about a month ago. Let me get it here amongst all the, and I had left it where I was talking about wanting to do another bend in here. I'm debating. And the reason I'm debating is I've come to appreciate what we do have. What I don't have is a hard bend that I decided would look good right down there in the bottom part of it, right in here. I decided I wanted a, and then and then what that did to the tree, I would have to go back in about 3 places and counteract a third of it down low, a third of it up here, then a third, so that we would still end up right here. But I was going to put a hard bend there and then exaggerate all of these little bends a little bit to counteract that. 2 things about that I've, in hindsight. One, it proved more difficult, and I'm kind of like, well, let's rethink this. And in rethinking, I was watching somebody else work on a similar tree. And what they praised about their tree was their lack of damage. We have that. I haven't scarred this thing up. One good way to put that big hook would be to take some of those trunk splitters that I have and just put a bite right there, go click, and touch it teeth to teeth, and that would put a scar right there and on the back side in the same place. And with that teeth to teeth bite, that would give us just enough lack of rigidity that we would be able to dictate that hook and where it was. That would also put a scar that would need rollover front and back in the same place. We would be deliberately scarring up our tree to do that. So far, the 2 people, me and the other person who've been responsible for this tree, have neglected to do anything that would put any scars on this tree. I know they knew what they were doing. I think at some point I'm figuring out what they were doing. And because I bought the tree, I also respect what they were doing. I respected it enough that I respected it as a piece of artwork and purchased it on site. So, I'm the girl in charge here. This is my tree and stuff, but I may be rethinking that first bend, and that might be, and that's why. So that's kind of a timeout on that. This guy is there. This guy is there. This guy. All right. I didn't really say anything about this. This is purchased as a 75-year-old cork bark, Japanese black pine. Frida and I are this tree's third keepers. We're its third keepers. And it's a cork bark because it has, you see, enormous bark plating on it. See, enormous bark plating. Now, this is a grafted tree. And as explained to me by the person who sold it to me, Patricia, this is a grafted tree. And it's obvious, as they said. The graft is right here. I mean, showing them? Yeah, the graft is right here. This is Japanese black pine. This is where they grafted a cork bark black pine to it. And that's not a different species. That's a black pine that's had an ailment. And the ailment makes it is rare, and it makes it 1 in 1,000. And it can happen to black pines, white pines, ponderosas, Scots pines, limber pines, timber pines, yellow pines, you name it. If it's a pine, it can get whatever this ailment is. And so far, I haven't been able to find anybody who knows why this happened. It's pretty rare that you would probably find one of these in the wild, as they are not hardy. Their rootstock tends to be fragile. Their branches, for all of that thick, beautiful bark they make, they tend to be lacking in a vascular system sense of the word. And if I go through here and I decandle this, and I take 1,000 little candles and put them in some substrate and try to get them to start the way some people as a hobby, for instance, might try to do a black pine. With a black pine, a standard black pine, you're going to get 3%, 1%, something like that. The odds are really, really, really low for the amount of effort versus seeds. Means people don't really want to do that unless it's just on a barbet or just as a challenge. But being a cork bark, if you can get one on its own roots, that would be pretty cool in some ways, seemingly. But the odds, because of the roots, are not the best on these trees. Also, when they are on their own rootstock, they survive better when they're on healthy Japanese black pine rootstock, and they're hard to bend without breaking the branch on the inside. Even if the cork bark stays intact and you don't see the branch broken, inside there the vascular system can snap easy, and they can't move water as laterally as the rest of that species of black pine normally does when it suffers from a crack or something. I've tried to put small movements in cork bark black pines only to lose whole branches before they do not like it. So yeah, that's a quick synopsis on these. Are rare, they're an anomaly, they're a little finicky at times, but they're also rewarding to grow. And this is now an 80-year-old tree, and it's one of our, I would say it's one of our flagship trees to our balcony. Now, that's what's going on there. Oh, yeah. I said that 6 pines, ponderosas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Earlier when I was talking about these ponderosas that I purchased, I forgot. 7. So I bent one to death, and I lost 2 to heat. That's not so bad. This is also a ponderosa. The rest of these are Japanese black pines, and they are also part of that group that I was saying where these trees and these trees are a combination. The ponderosas I ordered. Some of these Japanese black pines I ordered as seedlings, but we're also starting to get into the ones that we grew from seed ourselves. So from our first summer, we ordered 10 little Japanese black pine seedlings, and then we turned around and ordered 10 more. And since then, I've been popping them in my kitchen 20 and 30 at a time. So, yeah, that's what's going on. That's what's going on with those guys. And these are the fruits of our labor from that. So I've kind of gotten a little mixed up as to which ones I grew from seed and which ones I do know this one. This little one over here. Let me show you this little, pull out this little mama right here. Yeah. This is one of our little trees. Now I ordered this one. This little tree, I ordered 10 and got 9. Thank you. I guess they couldn't count the 10. But they were also very undeveloped. They were also, a couple of them were dead on arrival. So I ordered 10, probably got 6 out of it. And they were so tiny, but I wired the heck out of them and said, let's see what happens. I'm not going to baby them. And this little guy has always been greener and has always been everything elser than its counterparts. I'm going to go through here now. Whoa, those candles are early. You candles aren't early. I didn't get those candles. Yeah, I think I need to come back through and get those candles. Anyway, it also could use some biocoal. And then also I could maybe stop banging camera would be terrific. So that's kind of what's going on with our mames and our show hens. I have really enjoyed bending and folding these trees, and I'll look forward to doing more of that. I have a style that I call Cheerio, like Cheerios, the breakfast cereal. Because to me, when I bend perfect little circles out of these into these trees, they kind of resemble those tight little circles. Kind of remind me of Cheerios, and we've been kind of replicating that on the fly. This is last year's. Started no year earlier last year's. Started from seed. It's about, I don't know, 30 plus trees here. We're doing okay. We're not bulletproof by any means. This guy didn't get watered. That's what its problem is. And I made sure it got watered the last 2 days, and I'm seeing that the last bit of green is holding green. So let's see. That's what happens. Sometimes you'll get a tree hanging out there on the end, and you won't see in time that it was not getting a nice end of the deal. Now, I'm about to pull 10 of these trees out and make sure that they're wired to spec. And then I'm going to take 10 little clay pots, either terracotta pots that are about this big, or some little designer pots, not actually bonsai pots, but little designer pots that I was able to get cheap from work. And I'm going to make 10 little pre-bonsai trees this weekend and take those to my place of business where I work, and put them in the greenhouse as pre-bonsai. And they'll be like my bonsai or something, I'm not sure. No, I won't call it bonsai. What can I call it? I don't know. I probably won't call it bonsai balcony because that won't necessarily mean anything. But I will promote them. I will tell you guys, for those of you that are local, when they're there, and I'll try to, if they move. I mean, this is a mom and pop hardware store in the Port of Oakland side of town. It's not necessarily a place that you would think of to just pop into their garden center and get a bonsai tree. But if this works, I could keep supplying them. That'd be cool. I would like that. So yeah, in the kitchen also I have another 34 seeds that are being germinated as we speak. I'm on about I think I'm on about day 8 or 9 of germinating those. I've got about I have about 12 more seeds out of those 34 to come up. So far we've been fairly successful. I'm at 22 have already sprouted. They took longer to sprout this year, as I've already stated probably 3 or 4 times. I germinated them by placing them in a jar of water, and typically I do that for 48 hours. I say typical because the last 3 years I've been busy and it's taken me 48 hours to get around to it. But this year I did it in 24 hours, which was me thinking that I was being more, get your business taken care of kind of thing. And it seems to me that they take longer to start when I do that. So I would say next year, if I remember, do the 48 hours. That's telling me that this video is going a little longer than I'd intended because my lights just dropped. We're not going to turn the lights back on. We're about to wrap this up. I'm just kind of walking along, dropping bio gold on little trees that need it. So we're up to those guys. That's a ton of little Japanese black pine. We're going to select 10, make sure they're wired to our liking, and then put them at the store. That brings us to our Kodaha maple forest. This is 19 maple trees and some weeds in a Tokonoma Japanese bonsai pot. It's taken its time about coming out into leaf, but it's okay. It's all right. You just take your time. This is one of my early projects, and yeah, it's just been going and going and going. We're not at a point where I need to repot it, but I would like to probably, we are at a point where I would probably like to restyle. So that could happen, but probably not right now. Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. This is a good place to wind this up. Early on, I wanted to explore what my boundaries were for having bonsai trees on a balcony. So I measured the front door, and I said, that's your limit. You don't want to have to turn it sideways to get it through the front door. That's your limit. So that's the dimensions of the, that told us what the dimensions of what that pot would be. And then I decided what I was going to put in a pot that big, and that was 3 bald cypress. These 3 bald cypress, one of them I bought from a newsletter, and it was, I think, a 14-year-old tree. I say it's a 14-year-old tree because I cut the wedge in it. I cut this wedge in it right here. It was flat across here, and had 2 shoots coming out of the top of it like that. But I cut this wedge and then took these 2 shoots that came up closer in. And this one was the first year, and this one was 2 years later. I already had something growing out here that I kept bending back, but when this sprout came up at the base of that, I went, that is so located over this area right here, that if this little sprout becomes for real when it gets this big, I'm gonna start chopping back and the rest of that summer I did. I started cutting back that leader until I and then ground all that down. And then this was the new sheriff in town, and that was year before last, and it's already caught up this much with the fatter of the 2 leaders on the twin towers there. This guy is also doing something. We got cypress balls year before last. Last year I didn't notice any. Year before last I did. This year I noticed a lot more, but they're only on this tree. This is now a 15-year-old tree, so I guess that might be what has to do, not 15, 14, 15, about a 16, close to 20-year-old tree. But cypress balls. Cypress balls. And there's more littered about. And it is in leaf. And also the thing that I would say about this is a lot of stuff survived the winter that I would not have counted on. I said last year when we were cutting this thing back in the fall, we were making our choices, that I was going to leave more. I was hoping this would have stayed. It wasn't. But things that were smaller, and this wasn't, and this wasn't. But things that were that small did survive. And things that were smaller in some places survived. I wouldn't have given that little top there that's flushing out. I would not have, I almost cut that off because it's not even going to be there next spring, so why bother? But yeah, so these guys are going all out into full leaf. I look forward to them expanding their proud selves out and taking up way more balcony space than, I just had a thought, but that's for another time. Maybe it would be a good time to turn this guy around 180. That would also be hard to do. This is a 4-hand bonsai tree, or it was last time I picked it up, and it may have gained weight since then. We've been growing lumber. So anyway. We did some carving on this tree last summer with chainsaws and grinders and stuff. That was pretty exciting. I scared y'all to death. No stitches. No stitches. So far, I've drawn more blood showing off my tools than playing with power tools and jagged toys and stuff. But you never know with me. That's a quick synopsis. That's us. This is a great place to wind this up. We'll just focus in on these Taxodium ditchum, these American bald cypresses. They'll say it like that. They're American bald cypress. And I appreciate you. Frida here. Frida appreciates you. And thank you all so much for watching.